Good evening and welcome to this September 27, 2021 meeting of the Lake Bluff Village Board of Trustees. Clerk, please call the roll.
Trustee Inkeman?
Here.
Trustee Brienne?
Here.
Trustee Fisher?
Here.
Trustee Marquis?
Here.
Trustee Rappin?
Here.
Trustee Ryder?
Here.
Thank you. Please stand and join me in reciting the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. First, we have a proclamation designating October 2021 Fire Prevention Month. Whereas in 2021, U.S. fire departments responded to 1,291,500 fires, or one fire every 24 seconds. And whereas nationwide, there were 3,704 fire deaths, or one every 190 minutes. And whereas property loss resulting from fire during the same period totaled in excess of $14.8 billion. And whereas an enlightened and supportive citizenry can be effective in reducing both loss of life and property damage resulting from fire. And whereas the Village of Lake Bluff is committed to protecting its citizens from fire losses. And whereas the Village of Lake Bluff is served by an all-volunteer fire department which works with its residents to promote fire safety. Now, therefore, be it resolved that I, Régis Charlot, Village President of the Village of Lake Bluff, Illinois, do hereby proclaim October 2021 Fire Prevention Month in the Village of Lake Bluff. Village of Lake Bluff residents are encouraged form a fire escape plan for their home and participate in continuing information and educational activities of the Lake Bluff Fire Department during Fire Prevention Month and through the year, and to practice fire safety and prevention on a continuing basis. Passed on this 27th day of September 2021.
I think there's, please pardon me for a moment, but I think there's an audio problem. If you give me 1 second.
Okay.
Is yours?
I'm not going to do it. Did you watch the fireworks? I was at home. They looked like they were solid.
Did you see the spider?
I couldn't see from my house. I went up to the second floor, but they went in for a while.
Yeah, it was like 20 minutes.
That's great.
It was fun in a way.
Count to 10. Okay, that's great. So 9 seconds and we're good to go.
Okay. 10, 9. So next, we have item number 4, the consideration of the minutes of a September 13, 2021 Village Board meeting. Is there a motion to approve the minutes?
So moved.
A second?
Second.
Any changes?
I just had one minor one. And now I'm trying to find it. There was a line that, when we were talking about the streetscape plan, where I said, it says I was advocating.
Recording in progress.
That I was advocating for myself. It should say that I was not, that I was advocating for other people. And I'm sorry, now I can't find it because
I remember that. I can make that change.
Yeah.
I know where that change
there were
is.
just a couple other minor ones, Drew. I can email them to you where the tenses of verbs and stuff are wrong. But that was just something I double checked the video just to be sure. That's it.
And I also had a minor correction to page 8, the seconding of a motion for the lighting, updating it from me to Joy.
Thank you. Any more changes? All right. Are we okay?
You have a motion and a second, and so,
So next is clerk, please call the roll.
well, you just want to make sure that trustee Rappin is okay with those changes since he made the motion.
You're right. Trustee Rappin, would you be okay with those changes?
I am fine with those changes.
Thank you.
These are the minutes, right?
The minutes, yes.
Voice vote.
And so I'm fine as well with those amendments.
Yep. So now it's voice vote.
Okay, so it's a voice call, voice vote. Clerk, please call the roll.
No, you can just say all in favor.
Oh, sorry. So all in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? The motion passes. Thank you. Next is our non-agenda items and visitors. The village president and board of trustees allocate 15 minutes during this item for those individuals who would like the opportunity to address the village board of trustees on any matter not listed on the agenda. Each person addressing the village board of trustees is asked to limit their comments to a maximum of 5 minutes. Do we have anybody online who would like to address?
There are two attendees, but they're not raising their hands, Mr. President, so.
Thank you. So I think we can move forward. Next is item number 6. Village board sets the order of a meeting. Are there any requests to alter our regular agenda order?
No.
Moving on to the next item. Item number 7. This is our warrant reports for September 14 to September 27, 2021. Is there a motion to approve the report?
So moved.
A second?
Second.
Thank you. So the expenditures of village fund for payments of invoices in the amount of, the summary of background and reason of request is expenditures of village funds for payment of invoices in the amount of $420,854.80 for September 14 to September 27, 2021, for a total expenditure of $420,854.80. The documents attached are the warrant report, again, for September 14 to September 27, 2021, for $420,854.80, dated 9/14 to 9/27. The invoice register report shows checks with a status of open or paid. All checks with a status of open are computer-generated checks for the board's final approval. Checks with a status of paid are manual checks processed. Do we have questions? Do we have comments? Any more? Hearing none. Clerk, please call the roll.
Trustee Brienne?
Aye.
Trustee Fisher?
Aye.
Trustee Markey?
Aye.
Trustee Rappin?
Aye.
Trustee Ryder?
Aye.
Trustee Inkman?
Aye.
Thank you. Next is item 7B, our August 2021 financial report. Finance Director O'Connell, could you please provide us highlights?
Good evening. The monthly sales tax revenue on a cash basis for August fiscal year 22 is $409,487, which is $142,506, or 53.4% greater than the fiscal year 21 cash basis receipts of $266,981. Fiscal year 22 year-to-date sales tax revenue is $391,002 greater than the May through August fiscal year 21 cash basis receipts. Building permit revenue for fiscal year 22 to date is $167,450, or $61,280 greater than the same reporting period for last fiscal year. General fund fiscal year 22 total revenues of $4,729,782 are $786,571, or 19.9% greater than the August fiscal year 21 year-to-date revenues. Fiscal year 22 current expenditures are consistent with or less than budgeted, and the August fiscal year-to-date expenditures of $3,384,973 are $422,441 greater than expenditures for the same period in fiscal year 21. And lastly, as reported at the September 13th Finance Committee meeting, the village received a one-time reimbursement of $191,917 from the Village of Glenview for the initial investments and capital costs related to the 911 dispatch consolidation, which will be reflected in the September 2021 report. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there a motion to accept the finance report?
So moved.
Thank you. A second?
Second.
Any questions?
I had one. I've been meaning to ask this for a while, Bettina. On the pie chart on page 5, where it breaks down the sales tax by commercial sector. So I just want to understand this better when I'm looking at it. So the column for 2021 is year-to-date, and I take it, and here I realize might be a stupid question, but I'm going to ask it anyway, just for clarification. The columns to the left are the totals for the previous year, or, so 20?
Yeah, those are
Okay.
totals for the previous year,
Okay.
calendar year.
So, okay, I was just looking at the third line, just to see the differences as years change from like 2016. And also just going back to what you read as a sort of highlights, I think somebody asked you this before, but do you feel like as you've looked back and you have such a long frame of reference here, that these increases are anomalous and COVID-related? I think you said that once, but I just want to kind of get a sense of what you feel as looking at these numbers, because they're so much greater than the previous, like the 53% increase over fiscal year 21. But do you
Right, so I do think that they were COVID related and supply related, particularly in the automotive sector. I did look forward at the next month's reported sales tax revenue, and we're right at 400,000 again for the month of September, which will be again higher than it has been in the past. I don't anticipate that will continue as supplies diminish and sales just don't exist as they have been.
I know. I don't, I'm sure you've seen this if you track this, but the supply chain issues currently, so we can just anticipate this, the curve coming down and
leveling off.
Yeah, and not looking at this as something to bank on for the future.
No,
Okay, that's good. Thanks for the clarification. I appreciate it.
sure, you're welcome.
Any more questions from the board?
I had a quick question about the increase in expenditures year over year from fiscal year 21 to 22. The 422, 441. I probably should remember what the bulk of that is from, Bettina, but can you, is there one specific thing, or are there just several expenses that we've been incurring that combined to create that number?
So part of the expense that's different is related to police sworn salaries. So you have that aspect of it. I'm trying to see what else is. There are also different expenditures in the streets and sidewalk, which is related to capital spending that was different than prior year. And that's pretty much the bulk of it, really.
Okay, thanks.
Sure.
Thank you.
A payment like that could shift, and it's a great question, but the payments like that could shift depending on when the village's asphalt contractor sent us a bill in, right? It could be a big chunk, and since those expenditures are so large.
Yes.
Yeah.
True.
Yeah.
Thanks, Drew.
Okay, any more questions, guys? Hearing none, this is a voice vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion carries, the report carries. Thank you. Next, item number 8. Next is our village administrator, Irving report. And the first item on our report is an informational update regarding a license agreement for the use of village property for the construction of Bluff stabilizations improvement at Lilliandale.
Sure. In the packet is a memorandum kind of giving out an overview. I know a lot of you weren't out here on the board when this agreement was originally entered into by the village. And Jason and Kimberly Beans, and I believe they're actually on the call tonight too if there's questions. But I'm going to turn it over to Village Engineer Jeff Hansen. He's going to give an overview of the project, kind of some history for a lot of you, and then kind of bring us up to speed on where it's at today. Jeff?
Okay, so last year, I think we issued the permit 2 days before Christmas for the reconstruction of the slope you see here. I think Glenn has a video that we shot before any work was done. Is that what's next in the slideshow, Glenn? Just to kind of show what the conditions were when we started this whole project.
Skipped your house.
It was that steep.
Wow.
And this is following one of the trucking routes.
Is that a before?
Yeah.
So that's where we started, and you notice in Lilliandale it was a very narrow path, kind of eroded as you get narrow towards the bottom. There was a little, almost a waterway on the north side of the path, and then as you get to the top, it was well eroded. A lot of that erosion was from storms in 2017 and 2018. We really hadn't repaired it since then because we were trying to figure out what exactly it should be. And then when this slope failure happened, AMC approached the village about using Lilliandale to haul material in and out for their truck route to try to repair this. Now, what you see, that steel wall kind of, separating some of that old rock from the water, the old shoreline. The proposed plan actually bumped out that shoreline about 60 feet. So that was all done. Actually, I think the next slide has some historical pictures of Lilliandale. You can kind of see what it looked like many, many years ago. And I'd say right now it most closely resembles the one on the right, as we'll see here in a minute. But so you can see that, the Dell has been a lot of things over the past 100 years. You can see, I don't know if those are wagon track marks on the right picture or not, but that was the original use of it. And then it had been made into kind of a walking path. It had been fixed up several times and eroded several times. You can go to the next one, Glenn. And yeah, so the yellow is what the village owned when we started. It's 16 feet wide, kind of winding down the dell. And then you see it on the east side, kind of hooking into Lake Michigan. That area that bends and goes to the south was in the water. It has been in the water for several years. I don't know if I've ever seen a map where that wasn't in the water, but at one point when they platted this, it was dry land. As the lake has fluctuated, it's come up closer and further away from where our strip turned to the south. And yeah, next slide. So here you see below the word Lillian Dell, you see our storm pipe poking out into the lake. It's interesting is that end of that pipe is completely dry right now. So you see where the lake was a year ago, it's gone down about 1.5 feet. But that pipe is actually just off of our owned property in an easement. So our strip of land comes in just south of that pipe, our 16 feet, and kind of bent around where that steel wall was. Next slide, please. So the purple in this slide was the village land. The orange was one of the neighbors. And then the green area was essentially new land created by filling the lake bed to create the slope from the lake up to the top of the bluff to stabilize the bluff. So this was, their proposed plan. And this is the cross-section view of what they did. It's kind of hard to pick out exactly, but you see all the stone over there on the east side, and then the hole where the debris field is, where the collapse had been, and they essentially went from the top of this stone and then met existing grade at the top of the bluff and filled in that entire area with many thousands of tons of material. And this again kind of shows you where the rock went in the lake versus where the lake level was at the time that this was started. And then way up at the top on the right, you can kind of see where our pipe is and how close that rock ended up to our pipe. So we had to put together a license agreement before we finished all of the engineering on what would protect the dell from a 100-year storm. This was an exhibit that we put into the license agreement, which basically said that they need to get started so that they can protect the bluff and their home, and we will put in something like this when we're done. And we showed these stone check dams, natural stone grade controls, the supplemental large woody debris grade control, which are essentially tree trunks kind of buried into the stone a little bit. And the agreement called for essentially the area between these, the original agreement, to be completely filled with stone as well. Next slide. And then and part of the license agreement was to have this lake access down at the bottom of the dell. Essentially, they were filling in where we had that piece of property turning south that is now up on the slope, probably 20 feet in the air, and it's extremely steep and it's not traversable. So to maintain some sort of lake access to the village, which is what the dell has always provided, they agreed to put in some kind of these little stone stairs going to the water. There's two of them, one more useful in high water, one more useful in low water. So then here is towards the bottom of the dell, the before picture, the narrow gravel path. On the right, you see it's almost like a channel or a stream. It's basically our storm sewer overflow and a couple of side ravines that come in to the ravine. And then the next slide is what it looks like today. So that width was, the width to get a truck through here. And towards the bottom, you can see they've put in a couple of the rock check dams. We'll see those in greater detail later. But I think that the part to look at here is just, the walking surface right here and how it looks.
Jeff, can I ask, is that just gravel, or is there wood chips covering it, or what's the surface?
This is, I'll call it gravel, but it's like a broken concrete fill and some stone. And it's just been compacted by 1,000 dump trucks and time and dirt that has, washed over into it. and kind of darkened its look, but that is just stone with, that's been sitting there for several months this summer.
And Trustee Brienne, you are a little bit more of an expert in this area. Is that an attractive result?
Well, I talked to Drew about this earlier, about the restoration and then the potential for future destruction of same when and if we ever get the money to do this deep tunnel project. Personally, and I appreciate the question, no, but I think a lot of this is going to depend on who does the restoration, how we do it, what plant material we put in there, and how much it's really traversed. Narrow is better. It really is, because it controls the flow of people. But my understanding, and Peter, you know more about this agreement than I do, is that this is, we're obliged to have a quote-unquote pleasure drive. So that's something wide enough. That's the terms of the gift. So, my bigger concern is once this establishes itself, it would just be a shame to undo it, but that's where we are. We're going to have to contemplate undoing something, and ravines are really hard to restore. Mm-hmm. They're probably one of our most fragile ecosystems around. So I understand the predicament we're in, but I guess my question for Jeff is, can a vehicle get down there, and is that going to be allowed, or is this strictly walking?
Right now, you can get a vehicle down to the first rock check dam, which is close up of that is about 2 slides away. It is not going to be accessible by vehicle when we're done.
Okay, that was my hope.
That's not the plan.
Would be so. Pleasure drive is a term of art that's long fallen out of use, and it's not intended to be used for anybody but pedestrians. So. Mm-hmm. And is there going to be a change to that material, Jeff, or is that going to be the base?
That is, Glenn, can you skip ahead 1 slide here? And then another. Yeah, this is kind of just where it looked like he wrote it. So the agreement as contemplated back last November was that we would have these stone check dams and that we would cover the broken concrete fill with other natural looking stone between the check dams. And because of the timing, we had to do that agreement before we had all the engineering done on how large those stones would be. And when we finally saw what they were, it basically would be like the stones you see here covering the entire dell. So that seemed like it was not conducive to even walking down, and was a little bigger than we had envisioned. When we talk about 100-year flood protection in a ravine, normally it looks more like this, where you have the intermittent check dams to slow water down, settle out silt in the runoff, and then hold the bottom of the ravine from getting deeper. And in talking with our consultant, so we have this, if we were to put stones between these check dams just to kind of cover up, if you don't like the way that looks, they would either have to be so large that they would look just like this and it would be untraversable, or they'd be so small that they would roll and move in flood events.
Right.
So our recommendation is that we probably not do that, put in stone that's going to move.
Oh, so, I agree. That would be a waste. There's no point, because the velocity of the water coming down at that grade would make it pointless.
Yeah. And one nice thing about it being kind of flat and wide right now is when the water does flow, it will flow, shallow and wide. It won't be concentrated and be more erosive. So this kind of more of a sheet flow. The way this ravine gets water is, we don't have any real natural runoff diverted towards this ravine other than what falls near it. Our storm sewer takes most of the water away, such as at the end of East North, there's an inlet, and then up on Scranton and Mountain. So this ravine takes very little water for most storms. Then you get to that tipping point where our storm sewer surcharges, and then, it's like just a complete rush of water coming down here.
Yeah.
So it's like no water, and then, like, holy cow, it's just blasting through the ravine. So it's a little tricky. The design for the 10-year storm is not much different than the 100-year storm, because that's how it flows.
Right.
So the Beans and their contractor John Keno, they were talking about the cost and the look of putting all this stone and just lining the whole thing with rock, and that was not the most palatable thing for any party. And they kind of came up with this as a design to slow down the water. You see the 2 rock check dams here, and then there's a little stairway on the side. to help people walk over it. Now those little steps on the side is kind of surrounded by some smaller gravel. Some of that stuff will wash out. You know, there really is no perfect solution in here that will never require any maintenance, but we haven't really had a storm flood this out in 3 or 4 years. And now that I say that, I'm sure it'll happen, you know, in 2 weeks. But you're kind of risking a little bit of erosion with any plan that doesn't completely cover this with giant rock.
Right.
And that seems like something we're just going to have to live with.
The other question I have based on that, and I don't know if anybody else does, but I'm just going to shout this out, is that grass? I hope it's not. Is that
I don't think
grass?
that's ours.
That's private
That's an
property. but
example. Is that an example, Jeff?
You're both correct. That is seed and blanket and grass growing. I don't know if it's more of a meadowy mix, but grass seems to be popping up. But that property is not ours. That is outside of our stuff. That's a house on Maple owns that.
I think
That's
it's-
the area that was that kind of stream-like area. It was filled in and blanketed, and grass is starting to grow.
I think it's fair to expect that that area, as well as even where it'll just pop, there were already areas where there were already small trees popping through from just this summer, right? It's going to get repopulated with all those natural species that are down there that are volunteering already.
Right.
It'll go back to looking very much more densely packed
Right.
and pretty quickly, I think.
Yeah.
And the way those check dams work, they're also, as they capture water, they're also grabbing sediment, which will also form a medium for other plant materials to grow in.
Yeah, for sure.
I have a question, Jeff. Today, Drew and Trustee Ryder and I walked to the Liliendales, and so Drew said that there should be a check dam every 75 feet. And so I think there are 2 of these that we see here, plus another one with a log that is. So when is the completion of that work? That would be my question.
Well, partly they're waiting on your opinions from this meeting. If everybody approves of what they have proposed to do here, then they would replicate this further up in the dell. One thing that's not in the picture here is there's a woody debris check dam, which is basically a log that's buried about 75% and sticks up, I don't know, 3 to 5 inches above the ground that you would just walk over. And then those are interspersed with these other rock check dams. So they put this together as an example of what they're proposing to do in the rest of the dell. And if we're all agreed this is within compliance with the original agreement and we can move forward, then they would complete this, I would assume sometime in October. They are anxious to finish.
And to clarify, Village Engineer Jeff Hansen, myself, and our consultant, we believe in terms of what we're seeing, we would recommend that it is in substantial compliance with the terms that were set up with the license agreement. That's our view of things in terms of satisfying the objectives to include the 100-year storm, design elements around that, as well as meeting the aesthetic of returning to back the way it used to be, restoring it to that level. You don't see this here, but there will be the gate, the entry gate, the wooden fence that was there, and there was actually a village trash can and a doggy bag that was up at the top of the gate, and that'll get restored. And there's some other plant materials that the Beans have talked to their neighbors about restoring some more landscaping that was removed, vegetation that was removed at the entryway. So again, it'll go back to being somewhat hidden, a hidden gem, if you will. And we're working with the neighbors. In fact, there's a meeting scheduled tomorrow evening with Regis and I and the neighbors to talk about final plans for the gateway signage leading down there, really almost being an infographic to show what's private, what's public. Over the years, there's been concerns about folks leaving the dell and wandering onto private property, and we're going to do our best to try to discourage that with signage and so forth, and the neighbors are doing the same. So there's never been an elegant solution for that particular problem over the years, but I think we've tried to communicate them. We're dedicated to trying to find that, whatever that is, so.
I guess one question I had was just in terms of the maintenance, once this kind of goes into place, if we don't have the events, then it'll stay as is for a while, it'll continue to green up and look a little bit more natural, and that'll be great. But I'm just wondering about, so then the next time there's an event, it's 100% upon the village to maintain it, correct?
There's a maintenance period per the license agreement for a year.
Okay,
But beyond that, it would be on the village to maintain its property. So, for example, Jeff, help me out here, those logs that are largely subterranean, something like that has a life expectancy of a couple of decades.
20 or 30 years.
So like Jeff said, there's nothing that's imperfect, nothing is perfectly without maintenance, but other than the little gravel that you see there underneath the stairways, and we went back and forth on that with Keno, trying to find a way to do that, because visually it's attractive.
right.
At the same time, it actually serves the purpose of for a leveler for those stones, but some of that other gravel that's not under the force, gravity of the stones will get washed over time, and we would likely not replace that for that reason, is just because it would just get washed out again.
Well, I guess I was just wondering, because when you look at the before, it had a look of being extra natural, extra, I don't know, not highly maintained, that wasn't manicured. And I just wondered, is that what we can expect? Is that it's going to just become very unmanicured and very much hidden, or can we
Yes.
expect, okay, so
The
it's,
goal is to make it more, let it go back to its native look.
okay,
And-
okay.
And Jeff, what's the next slide? Oh, go back then, I'm sorry.
Go back
So,
one more, Glenn.
yeah, so that's what it used to look like.
Right.
And again, that's where, that was a lovely project by Boy Scouts over the years, but it just couldn't, when those big storms hit, I mean, there was actually asphalt in those tiered stairs, tamped down asphalt millings, grindings, and they would get blown out.
Yeah.
And it would be very difficult to go, it was very hard to traverse. This will be better longer. And Jeff, do you want to talk about some of the cutting that you see here too, the erosion that this project also improves the stabilization for the adjacent property owners?
Yeah, what you see here was the Boy Scout project it was really nice until we had a couple of big storms. And then it just eroded all the stuff out of those timbers. But as the ravine washes and gets deeper, that's when the sides get too steep and you get the side slopes caving in. So by holding the bottom of the ravine bed in place with these check dams, it should prevent any further lowering of the dell. And in fact, the haul road they built raised the dell by 1 to 2 feet in most areas. So that in itself, and then trying to hold that level now, which probably puts it back to where it was 50 years ago, should help the side slopes from not continuing to slough off and erode. If you walk down there, you look, especially to your left as you're walking down, you will see some pretty significant slides that have happened over the past several years, and this should stop that or lessen the chances of that continuing to happen and benefit everybody in that area.
I already know that this was a bit treacherous trying to walk down that. And I imagine those stairs look great now, but as the little material washes away, I just wondered how soon it might be a safety concern. I mean, this is obviously kind of a safety concern.
Yes.
So it will be a vast improvement, but I just wondered how soon that material is going to wash away to the point that it's really going to make it unstable, or those larger stones might shift.
Jeff, you want
And
to talk?
Glenn,
Yeah.
Glenn, can you go 3 slides up to the present view, looking at the lake? So as we get down here, you see the little walkway kind of towards the top of the dell. If you ignore the lake for a second and come back up the path a little ways, you see those flat stones surrounded by those smaller stones, and every 10-year-old who walks down here is going to kick some of those smaller stones away, and then eventually we'll have a flood, and a lot of them will wash away, and it will essentially leave those flat stones to walk on, and with a couple inches of bare ground below that level in between, so you kind of have to hop stone to stone.
Yeah.
You see how it looks wet next to where those little stones stop. And that is what they were trying to solve, is that it was getting very muddy down there. So by raising these flatter stones up on the south side of the dell, it serves 2 purposes. One is to keep people on private property, on public property off of private property. You can see our pipe in this picture. Remember, our property ends about 2 feet right of the pipe. The property owner adjacent has put a no trespassing sign on, which you can kind of see just left of the pipe. But this path should hopefully keep people in the right spot. And eventually I would expect it to green up outside of the, the traverse area, that narrow area, and kind of further push people on to the edge of our property towards these steps to the lake.
So the point is that the part that's wet is private property, and it discourages people on that. Is that correct?
The parts where you see like glistening water right now, that is still our property, but it pushes people further, to the edge of our property and away from, the temptation of that open area left of the pipe. I think any normal person walking down there would probably just assume the pipe's on public property as well.
Yeah.
So we're trying to keep people pushed as far south as possible.
I don't want to belabor this conversation, but I just want to make sure I have some clarity here. So before this project was proposed, when was the village planning next to perform maintenance? And forgive me just refresh my memory if we've already hit on that.
Well, the storms that caused a lot of damage in 2017 and 2018, we kind of hit the pause on maintenance of that area because we were still planning this large storm pipe to come through here, and we did not know when that would happen. So it seemed like a good time to kind of pause and figure out what our plan was for the big storm pipe. But then, because it was used and changed in this project to restore the bluff, we have to put something back. So that's why we are where we are right now. But we would not have probably done this on our own had this other project not happened to fix the bluff.
And I should also say that throughout the seasons or months when this is much more accessible, so kind of, spring through fall, Village's Public Works, we go through there, we do monthly inspections to make sure there's no trees overhanging the path that are risky, to pedestrians. It's historically been signed as enter at your own risk. It's uneven surfaces, and that's at the trailhead, and when it says no swimming, and that's because there is from time to time rebar will appear down there, and we don't want folks taking that risk. And so, and when they go down there, Public Works will fish out the rebar that they can see, and so those inspections take place on a regular basis. So that maintenance is always taking place, but in terms of the trail, after those, the scouts came and did their program and it just got blown out in those significant storms, we weren't going to allow scouts to do more work in vain, right? And with the idea is like, let's figure out something, and that's when this popped up. It said, let's find a solution that's going to meet the 100-year storm.
Gotcha.
So,
Yeah, we had kind of thought to kind of repair the scouts work would be about $50,000. It would be completely at risk at one more storm to be blown out again. It seemed like we were short-term thinking, so we're trying to think longer term.
Jeff, you just brought up a really interesting point, though, about the stormwater pipe. So if we do end up updating all the stormwater pipes, then we'll be ripping up the Lily and Dell, that area again, correct? We'll be pulling out the Pleasure Drive again and relaying new pipes down there and then reworking it. Am I correct in thinking that?
It's not known yet if it would be a bored pipe or just dug. That is a tough question because we only have 16 feet. It's hard to dig a trench that big and put a pipe in. But if we did complete it the way that they have started right now, essentially you would push those rocks to the side, put the pipe in, and then put the rocks back for the check dam. You'd have to replace the logs.
Okay.
There's always logs sitting there because there's always trees falling. But yeah, this plan is kind of conducive to that because now we have this 1 to 2 foot thick gravel road through there, which a contractor would love to have to put a pipe in through that dell.
Yeah. And just a follow-up question, is there a slide that shows the stairways down to the water?
I don't think
off
we have
the
a good
extended
one.
path?
Yeah, Glenn, if you go to I think it's the last one with a picture on it. I don't know that we actually have a good picture of the stairs. This is actually off the end of our property. You note the lake level, which was in the original movie way up in the pipe. Now it's not even touching it. But no, I think unfortunately we don't have a good picture of the stairs.
Is that something that we could see at some point, just because I know that was part of the agreement, that part of our responsibility as a village is to be able to provide access down?
Yeah.
I mean, guess-
Glenn, can you go to the slide, the very early slide, which showed the plan view with the early, there was a image showing what it would look like? It's like, it has the sketch, yes. So right there, see right there on the lower left, those steps going down?
Right.
It looks just like that. I mean, it's not too far off that, other than the plant material that has moved in over time is not there yet.
Okay.
But there's two sets of stairs, and they both look just like that. And for the board members out there today, I mean, you've seen them and you've walked on them presumably, and yeah, it's
very nice.
very
Is
nice.
it's safe? I mean, I guess my concern is safety, like that you're going down a little rock path into the water. I don't know how many people would actually use that, but just the idea that it's safe, that as they're going down, they're not going to slip and fall. There's not going to be an issue getting into that little, if they really wanted to swim off of it.
It is, swimming is not what we
Right.
want.
Not allowed, okay. So
Are
we
we
just have
putting
the.
those signs back up? I just
Yes.
want
Okay.
to, because that does, the whole project makes this area far more visible and appealing, and a stairwell into the water. Frankly, I love swimming all year long in the lake, and I would be very tempted.
See a sign, danger, rebar, do
Yes.
not enter, presumably that would
Yes.
change your mind.
That would absolutely change my mind, yeah.
And
Okay.
the stairs are wide, they're very well done, this is
Okay.
very safe and very clean.
Okay.
Unfortunately, we shouldn't go and swim there.
If you did walk in the water, the first rock under the water is very slippery, so I wouldn't suggest
I'm
that.
not planning to swim there.
Yes.
I just
Yeah.
know that other people might be tempted.
Yeah, sorry, I'm furiously looking through my pictures, but I can't find a good picture of the steps.
It turned out really nice.
Okay, thank you.
And I know Mr. Beans is on the line. If you-
Let's have Mr. Beans.
Was trying to find a picture of it to send to you, Drew.
Okay.
You can flash it around.
Okay.
Turns out I take way too many pictures, so I'll get there at some point. Yeah, but that is the exact same concept. It looks really nice, and it is just competing goals of maintaining water access and then not wanting people in it. And we've got the steps, and now we got to keep them off it.
Right, could I ask, since I wasn't involved in the original discussion about this, I think Joy brings up a good point. What is the function of the stairs if we don't want people in the water? Why are they, it
The
seems
idea-
like we're attracting people to do something we don't want them to do. And while an adult brain,
Yes.
no offense, kids, but I just feel like maybe that's, if those are they done? Because it seems like maybe that would be something that my liability-minded mind says, ooh, I don't see the function of those.
Yeah, and here's what I would say is, while this looks very inviting, previously, before this work was done, it was not unlike the land to the north, which was a gentle slope into, a gravel walk right into the water. So this is
Okay.
actually harder to get into
Yes.
in some regards.
Okay.
So at the same time, the village's, legacy to the property donator to maintain the access, this is, we were walking that fine line and trying to be respectful of that.
Got it.
And at the same time, holding out, this is kind of the century mindset of, we don't know what's going to be down there 100 years from now. And
Yes.
so the idea that it maybe there's some way technology developed that we can get rid of the rebar or something, and maybe the village would want to allow swimming, or something could change over time. So we want to have that access open and
I see.
available.
Okay.
So it's just that long-term thought.
The image, though, that Jeff showed in this deck appears right next to where the pipe comes out, that is sort of almost like a tiny beach.
Little coves.
So
Unfortunately, there are rebars sticking out, and frankly, I would not wish on anybody to go and swim there, because I find it very dangerous, and it changes weeks to weeks.
Okay, so what you see in the picture is very deceiving, in other words.
It's very
If you're
inviting, but
standing right
dangerous.
there.
I mean, I walked today with Drew and Suzanne, and I was looking at the thing, and I saw a twig, so I walked to it, so I went on that beach, and that was a rebar that was long like that, sticking up.
Got it. Okay.
But again, Kate, that historically has been a very popular spot for teenagers and young people, and I
Yes.
mean, they like going down there.
Right.
So,
That's what I
you're right to
understand.
bring it up. Yep,
Yeah, that's what I've been told.
yes.
Okay.
So Jeff, I don't think you have anything else. Maybe you do?
No, it's just like I said, if we are in agreement that what they have done an example of can continue throughout the rest, we will give them the green light to do that, and then they'll fulfill that obligation. Their other obligation that it says here is to dedicate property, basically up to those steps isn't exactly where our property is right now. So the agreement called for them to dedicate the path that goes to those steps to the water to us upon the completion of construction. They have to survey, exactly where the stones went, and then dedicate that little piece to us. I think it was about, what do you say, 400 square feet in the agreement.
Yeah, and just so you guys know, I've started that process. We have to involve the bank and everything else, but that's figure it out. But it's definitely it's in the way. We're working on it now. So everything underneath this, the rocks and the pathway that will be village land, and I'm eager for it too, because I don't want the liability. So yeah, that'll happen. Is what's happening right now.
And I believe, as in the agreement, it was all supposed to be completed within 1 year of the issuance of the permit, which was December 23rd. So that's our target, to have this all cleaned up by then.
Okay, good to know.
So that's really it. And so I think I see a lot of consensus. I'm not hearing any concerns. So we'll.
It looks like they've done a good job of executing what was promised, and, given the challenges that they came across, found creative solutions, and look forward to it being complete before the winter, right?
Yes.
Very soon.
Yes. All right.
Anyone, any more comments?
Looks good.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Jason.
Thank you very much,
Thanks,
Mr.
all.
Bean.
Appreciate it.
Yeah. And then the other item in my report is just a simple report regarding the destruction of documents. The village is constantly trying to manage our files. I brought these reports in the past. If there's no heartburn with us proceeding with destruction of those documents, we'll do that. And the last thing I would report, that's not written down for you, but we had the pre-construction meeting with Copenhagen Construction, the firm that the village hired to do the streetscape work, and that work will start a week from today. So we've been in communication with the property owners and our merchants, and they're going to start on the north side of the street and do 100% of that work, and then shift to the south and do the south side of the street following that. And they reported today that if things go silky smooth, it could be 15 days on the north and 15 days on the south.
Great.
We know that won't happen, so it'll probably be 30 days on the north and 30 days on the south. And we also discussed in the meeting, we know when the rain will begin, which is Monday, because that's what happens, right? But no, it's good. I've had numerous conversations with merchants. They're excited about the work. They're looking forward to it. So maybe it's a perfect outcome, and we can get in and out of there quickly and get all the work done. I would say the one thing that we thought would be true would maybe material delays for the lighting itself was, how many weeks lead was that, Jeff?
I believe they said 14.
14 weeks lead on the festoon lighting poles. So they'll do everything but set those poles. And again, hopefully everything else can get 100% complete, and then finish that up early in the spring. So.
Any unexpected concerns from area business people from the work that's about to start?
No, not really. I think haven't heard that. We've been working with the Garden Club about relocating the Dancer statuary, and they are examining whether or not they're going to try to salvage the plants actually in the planter bed itself, and relocating the planters that they just filled in our CBD and moving them to help beautify the Block 1 area. So that'll happen soon, probably before the end of this week. So no, not really.
It's too bad we didn't think about moving those plants over to the Public Works building.
Well, I
realized that a lot of them would do really well there.
I think there's a possibility the Garden Club's going to grab them.
Yeah.
So,
So they won't be lost, it will be,
Yeah, that's
they'll
the
be
goal.
recycled,
Yes, upcycled,
upcycled.
yes.
How about parking while they're doing that? Are we still gonna be able to park on that stretch of Scranton? Or-
Yes, so
Yes.
when the north side's being done, you won't be able to park on the north, but the south will be open, and then
Vice versa.
vice versa. Been trying to work with some other property owners in town that own some lots and trying to secure them for, during the duration of construction, but have not yet been successful, although I was getting hopes that still may come true.
That's
So,
right.
But still working on that. That's all I have.
Thank you very much. So our next item is the village attorney report. Mr. Friedman, do you have a report tonight?
No report tonight.
Thank you. Next is my report. I do not have a report tonight, except to mention the Lake Bluff 125 committee for their wonderful work for our community. I think for the last 3 years, I believe it was a lot of work. And this past Saturday was the Lake Bluff Birthday Bash, 126 years in the making, held at the Blair Park campus and golf course. And so the past year saw, I'm amazed by that. So Dogs on the Bluff, murals on Walnut Street, 125th anniversary commemorative quilt, and the Lake Bluff 125 commemorative brick walkway and anniversary garden in front of the village hall. I did have to take note of that, otherwise I would forget, and this is so important. So much was actually done. So the Lake Bluff 125 committee has made significant and lasting contribution to Lake Bluff, and our village is very thankful to the volunteers who made this possible. And I would say that we will have a formal recognition for LB 125 on our next village board meeting. Trustee Markey, would you like to say a few words?
Sure. Thanks, Regis. Or President Charlot, sorry. You're right, we started in May of 2018 on that committee, and when we started, there were 3 of us up here that were on the committee, and I'm the last one here. It was a wonderful group of people, volunteers in the community that really gave a lot of time and energy to make the events and the activities happen. And you already mentioned quite a few things. I also wanted to mention the the history walk, which was underwritten by Abbott. And when you see those brass plaques in the sidewalks and the accompanying app that goes with it, that was all done by the Lake Bluff History Museum. We partnered with them, and they did all of the text and information in those walking tours was put together by the History Museum. So a great, great project, something they've been wanting to do for a long time. I guess Dogs on the Bluff, my feeling with that is it was perfect timing to do that last summer when we were all just worn out with COVID and things were so uncertain, and it brought so much happiness to our community and to people outside our community who came and saw it. So Pam Russell and Jen Leventhal really did a great job putting that together. Just incredible. And on Saturday night, well, before I say Saturday night, I have to mention the quilt, which was done by the Lake Bluff Lake Forest Quilters. They did an amazing job. It's up in the Public Safety Building. If you haven't seen it, I think Drew mentioned it earlier, you can pop into the Public Safety Building, take a look. I think the mowers are even represented on the quilt, so we tried to make it very Lake Bluff. And then on Saturday night, just the amazing turnout for the birthday bash. And our thanks to Jillian Chapman in the library that kind of put that all together. We had incredible sponsors for the entire 3 years. They stuck with us the entire 3 years, Northwestern Medicine, the bank, Elko, Life and Annuity. I mean, I'm not going to list them all, but they really helped make all the events happen. So I'm always amazed at how much people in this town volunteer, how much they love their town. It's great to be a part of it. So,
Thank you, LB25. We're very grateful to you.
thanks.
Thank you.
Thanks, Troy.
Next, we have, any comment on that?
I really just wanted to reiterate how the evening was, Saturday night was such a perfect example of this community's vibe and energy. And I think it's important for you and everybody else to hear it, and we'll repeat it next month, that I was inundated with commentary of the love fest, of being so proud to be a Lake Bluffer. it was such a simple, small-town gathering, but we all know it took hours upon hours upon hours of work to bring that to us. So thank you, Trustee Markey.
Thank you, guys. Next is item number 11, acceptance of a correspondence. Please note that all correspondence was delivered to the Village Board of Trustees in the informational reports on September 12 and 17, 2021. Is there a motion to accept the correspondence?
So moved.
Thank you.
Second.
Any discussions? Hearing none, clerk, please call the roll.
Trustee Fisher?
Aye.
Trustee Markey?
Aye.
Trustee Rappin?
Aye.
Trustee Ryder?
Aye.
Trustee Inkman?
Aye.
Trustee Brian?
Aye.
Thank you. Next is item number 12, a resolution approving a site plan and a site sign code exemption for J.C. Licht at 419 West Washington Avenue. Is there a motion to approve a resolution?
So moved.
Thank you. Second?
Second.
Second, thank you very much. In 2020, Thiboni merged with J.C. Licht. Early this year, J.C. Licht remodeled their Lake Bluff location. They recently placed a dumpster outside and installed window signs to cover windows but have a backs of shelves on the interior. The proposed plans would bring the dumpster into compliance with a screening requirement of Section 10-4-2H. They're also requesting a sign code exemption in order to have window signs which cover 29% of the window area, exceeding the 15% allowed by code. The plans were presented to the Architectural Board of Review on September 7th. The ABR recommended approval of a site plan by a vote of 4-0, and they recommended approval of a sign code exemption by a vote of 3-1. Any questions? Any comments? Hearing none, clerk, please call the roll.
Trustee Markey?
Aye.
Trustee Rappin?
Aye.
Trustee Ryder?
Aye.
Trustee Inkman?
Aye.
Trustee Brian?
Aye.
Trustee Fisher?
Aye.
Thank you. Next is item 13, a resolution authorizing the execution of a construction engineering services agreement with Gewalt Hamilton Associates, Inc. for the Village of Lake Bluffs fiscal year 2022 roadway improvement program. Is there a motion to approve a resolution?
So moved.
Thank you. A second?
Second.
Thank you. Earlier in 2021, the Village Board awarded a construction contract to Peter Baker and Son Construction for the Village fiscal year 2022 roadway improvement program. At the time, the village also solicited a proposal from the professional engineering firm Gewalt Hamilton Associates, Inc., GHA, of Vernon Hills, Illinois, for the necessary construction observation, project administration, and material testing services required for implementation of a project. The proposal submitted by GHA is for an amount not to exceed $39,852. Payment will be made on an hourly basis to include profit and overhead at the hourly rates as specified in the agreement. The project is mostly completed with only miscellaneous construction items and checking of quantities remaining. Approval of the agreement is necessary for payment of some services already rendered and the completion of the work to close out the project. The village's proposed fiscal year 2022 budget includes funds for the necessary construction observation services. The village engineer recommends adoption of the attached resolution approving the construction engineering services agreement. Questions?
I had a question for Drew. So this is for observation and testing of the work that Peter Baker does. Much of this work has already been done, correct?
Yes.
So just help me understand the process of approving a contract after a good chunk of the work is done.
Usually doesn't happen.
Okay,
This is something that slipped through the cracks.
got it.
And that's the answer. So usually when the work is awarded to whoever was a low bid for the contract for the roads program, or any other construction project, usually in tandem is the observation services if they're not being performed in-house.
Yeah.
This was just a miss,
Okay, makes sense.
so.
Thank you.
So to follow up, because that's a great question, in the compensation portion of this, on page 14, it talks about services not included in scope of work will be billed on a time and materials basis. So we're talking about, the number we see is 39,852. What if this is, what's the ceiling here, anticipated ceiling?
The 39.
Is it the
That's-
39
yeah,
a hard
and-
number?
Yeah, and Jeff, do you want to comment on that? It's going to be actually lower.
Okay.
Jeff, you want to comment?
Yeah, I think they're going to be about 35 when they're done. There's not enough work left to get to 39. Essentially, I went to pay their bill and I realized that we had missed a step. So that's why this is getting done now.
Got it, thank you.
Thank you. Any more concerns or questions? Thank you. Hearing none, clerk, please call the roll.
Trustee Reppin?
Aye.
Trustee Ryder?
Aye.
Trustee Inkeman?
Aye.
Trustee Brian?
Aye.
Trustee Fisher?
Aye.
Trustee Markey?
Aye.
Thank you very much. Next is item 14, our trustees' report. Do any trustees have any wish to make a report this evening? So be it. Thank you. Next is item 15, consideration of a September 13, 2021 executive session meeting minutes. Is there a motion to approve the meeting minutes?
So moved.
Thank you. A second?
Second.
Thank you. Are there any questions, discussions, or concerns? Hearing none, clerk, please call the roll.
Trustee Ryder?
Aye.
Trustee Inkeman?
Aye.
Trustee Brian?
Aye.
Trustee Fisher?
Aye.
Trustee Markey?
Aye.
Trustee Reppin?
Aye.
Thank you. I see on the agenda we have an executive session tonight. Do we have such a session?
Briefly.
Thank you. So might I get a motion to get into closed session to discuss pending litigation?
So moved.
Thank you. A second?
Second.
Thank you. Clerk, please call the roll.
Trustee Brian?
Aye.
Trustee Fisher?
Aye.
Trustee Markey?
Aye.
Trustee Reppin?
Aye.
Trustee Ryder?
Aye.
Trustee Inkeman?
Aye.
Thank you. So this concludes the open part of the village board meeting. Thank you to anyone in attendance and have a great evening.
Thank you. All right, give me 2 minutes.